You'll see I'm not alone in the studio today, which always makes me happy. We're going to be talking about the fact that back in the summer, some of our Mississippi Master Gardeners, they won second place in an international, or got an award at an international conference, which I think is definitely a good thing. And joining us to tell us more about that is Dr. Jeff Wilson. He is the statewide Master Gardener Coordinator with the MSU Extension. And then one of those Master Gardeners who had a masterfully great idea is John Malanchak. How are you, John?
Doing fine, thank you.
And Dr. Wilson, how are you?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Good to have y'all here. Congratulations, because I know it was a team effort, even though, John, I think it was kind of your baby that got the award. I know it took a lot to get there. So I'm going to start with you, John. This is all about Dominic's garden, and this is sort of something that sprung up in your imagination a while back. So when did you tell us about Dominic's garden?
Yeah, the idea came to me about early 2017. And I was volunteering at St. Dominic's, and they asked me if I would garden with their kids, their 3- and 4-year-olds. And I said, sure. So it went on for several years, and here we are, I guess, in 2023. And it's branched out beyond the mustard seed. As I was mentioning to you just a while ago, that now we're gardening more and more at memory care units. It just takes on a whole new vision of, trying to communicate with people. And as I tell all the other gardeners that do want to volunteer with me, it's more than gardening. It's
always more than gardening.
It's becoming very personal. It's more than friendship. You see a person in the latter stages of their lives, and you just want to make a difference.
And a difference you obviously made. But going back to St. Dominic's, so I'm assuming that's what they have a child care center there, like many hospitals do for employees. Is that where the 3- and 4-year-olds or the younger children were coming from, or were they patients at the hospital?
These were children of staff.
And was the idea just, hey, you know what, them little boogers need something to do, let's get them busy and in the garden? Or did the person who wanted to start it have bigger ideas for that?
Well, the idea I had is, going through Dr. Wilson's program, the Master Gardening Program, I really wanted to share that passion of gardening. And then, as we talked about prior to coming in here this morning, you have to know your audience. So here I have all this information on gardening, all the science behind it. I'm talking to 3-year-olds. So,
which is most of us 30- and 40-year-olds, too, when it comes to gardening.
I tell you what, but that's how it started. Just one by one, just gardening with them, talking to them. And, of course, they're about as rambunctious. They're like wild cattle. And
did you get anything grown?
Yes. We did a lot of flowers that we'd get at the nursery and just plant those versus seeds. And at the end of the season, of course, the annuals are going to start to die off. And one time I was talking to this little girl. Her name was Amelia, and she was 3 years old. And I told all the kids, I said, these flowers here don't look good because they're starting to die. And Amelia had her head down. And all the kids are like they're punching the flowers, all the boys, just rambunctious. And I asked her, I said, Amelia, you okay? And she said something. She whispered to me. I couldn't hear her, so I got down on one knee. I said, Amelia, I couldn't hear you, which I can't hear anyway. And she whispered to me, she said, why do they have to die? And I thought about it, and I said, okay, Lord, it's going to be one of those things. You're going to have to talk to me like you talk.
I didn't sign up for this.
like you talked to Moses, you're going to have to talk to me and tell me what to say. And I told her that God selected her to take care of this mama who just died, her babies. And she said, where are the babies? And we opened up that little mum or something, and there were all the seeds. And I said, these are all the babies. Now I want you to take them home so you and your mom and dad and brother can go ahead and plant these.
Now I feel terrible throwing my fern in the trash, Dr. Wilson. Terrible. But no, I think that's beautiful. It also goes to show at that young age they're starting to learn the process and recognize that that something grows, and then there's time, and then but then life can sort of continue, and that is definitely something a gardener understands. So, Dr. Wilson, we are throwing around this term Master Gardener. I feel like most folks probably know maybe what that is, but when you come across someone who may have never heard of the term or what that means, how do you best describe it?
Well, it is pretty well known across the state, so a lot of people do know what the Master Gardener program is about. But it is a volunteer leader training program that was developed in Oregon in Washington in 1972, and it's been in Mississippi since 1992. And it is a program where the Extension Service, we provide horticulture education to the public, and then in return, they provide volunteer service to us. And that's what helps them to become a Master Gardener.
So what all do you have to go through to get that designation? Because that is a distinction I would not hold easily. Do you have to grow things and keep them alive?
You do not, but that's a wonderful question. And that's the first question we always get when people are interested in it is there a prerequisite, or what do I have to know in order to become a Master Gardener? And we say you don't have to know anything. You just have to have a desire to learn, and you have to have a willingness to help others. And if you can do those two things, you can become a Master Gardener. But the process is that it involves, you take a training, which is 40 hours of training, which is now done online. Traditionally, in the past, it was done in person, so it would take about 6 weeks of your time to reach those 40 hours. Now we do it in an online format. So you take the online 40 hours, and then once that is over the next year, you volunteer 40 hours with a local Master Gardener group, like John works with Hinds County and Madison County Master Gardeners. And so you volunteer with your local Master Gardener group on the different projects that they work on, and that's how you get your time in to become a Master Gardener.
And then once you get that designation, what does that sort of, other than it's really cool to have and it opens you up to a like-minded community, which I'm sure is part of the beauty of it, but do you get special, plants or bulbs, or I don't know, is there something that else comes with it?
Well, not really, other than you get the knowledge that you've gained, and then the joy of working with other gardeners. And that's the two primary reasons people take the course, is they want to learn and they want to help others. So really the joy comes from giving back to others and doing your volunteer service. That's the real reward of the whole process.
Do you find that many of the Master Gardeners are in their retired phase of life, or do you have those that are in all stages of life?
So we've been in Mississippi. This is our 32nd year with the program, and until 2 years ago, it was traditionally almost always retired people. One, because of the time commitment to take the class. I mean, it was always offered during the daytime hours, and it's 40 hours. So traditionally, it was retired people who were Master Gardeners. Now that we have moved to an online format, we are seeing younger people taking the course, and we are seeing a lot more people who still work full-time. So in the last 2 years, about 30% of the people who have completed our online training are under age 50, and all of those under age 50 are almost all of those are working full time. So we're seeing a shift in what is a Master Gardener, who is a Master Gardener.
It's exciting.
It is exciting, yes. Not to knock the traditional group that we had of mostly retired people, but it's wonderful to see younger people getting involved, and people that are now working full-time get involved also.
Is it cut flowers or flowers as well as produce? Is it both, or that you in the Master Gardener, education, or is it leans more one to the other?
It's all of horticulture. So they learn about botany, they learn about soils, honeybee care, fruits, vegetables, nuts, ornamentals. It's a wide variety. So we try to cover an introduction to all of horticulture.
Wow. Now I can see where that would be. I mean, and that's why I'm glad I asked that, because some may think, oh, it's just try to help me better grow this or that. But no, it feels like you're getting a more 30,000-foot view of like how it all sort of fits together, and then having that knowledge. It is exciting to see younger people get into that, because I think it's more think about their own homes and backyards as being little ecosystems. I didn't get tomatoes because I didn't have bees. That's what a Master Gardener told me. So I am learning myself, although I don't see myself being one that could pass that exam. But John, you did. You are a Master Gardener, and you are paying it forward in the community. I know that there at St. Dominic's, it's not the only place you've had Dominic's Gardens, so we're going to get to that and more coming up next. We're continuing our conversation with some of Mississippi's Master Gardener, one being the coordinator, Dr. Jeff Wilson, and we got John Malanchak. Am I saying your last name right, John?
Yes.
I did it right. I'm so proud. You are the creator of Dominic's Garden. Now, it did receive a second place award at an international conference. So before, we dive more into that, let's toot your own horn. Where did that happen? How did that come about?
I took the Advanced Master Gardening program here in Mississippi under Dr. Wilson. It's this program. And my project, I was going to do a PowerPoint presentation, and Dr. Wilson said, "No, you're not." He said, "You need to do a publication." And I said, "Okay, I think I can do that." And he said, "No, how do you garden with those with disabilities? Not just that you garden with them, but how do you size up your audience to convey that message to them?" So it was very difficult for me to write that. And I told Dr. Wilson, I have a couple of master's degrees in geology. And I said, "This is the hardest thing I've ever written in my life." He said, "You're dealing with human beings with possibly intellectual disabilities." And so finally, my wife said, this other lady, Master Gardner, said, "You need to submit this thing to Dr. Wilson, final, and just because you're driving us crazy." So the funniest thing about it, to me, it was torture. But the more I got into it, I understood how academia wants a report. It's not like, okay, this is a story by John Malanchak, etc. Said, no, it needs to be this way. It needs to be structured like this, no emotions this way or that way. I turned it in, and we had several emails back and forth, Doc and I. And the funniest thing about the whole thing was he wrote back one time, he said, "Quit editing my edits."
Oh, I appreciate you, John.
So I kept changing stuff that he would send me. And then from that, I was encouraged to submit for an award at the International Master Gardener Conference. And I said, no, I don't want to do that. Because, you're going up against the best of the best, basically. Mm-hmm. And there's a program, all the stuff had to go to Virginia Tech. Then they sent it out to agents and horticultural professors across the country. And you had to make a certain grade out of 100 to even be considered for first, second, or third place. And I remember they said that we'll tell you on February 21st. So on February 21st, I was working at a wine store, and I kept checking my emails. Customers standing at the table waiting to be checked out, and I'm checking my email. And finally, at 3 o'clock, I got this email from the lady at Virginia Tech. It says, "Congratulations." And I'm trying to say, okay, what does that mean? I wouldn't even read the next sentence. And it said, "You won second place." I said, "No, you have me confused with somebody else, I'm sure." But that was torture, too, working with Dr. Wilson, because he had so many edits. And
there's going to be so many people lined up to work with you, Dr. Wilson.
Yes.
And not only, he had other... first of all, he had other advanced master gardeners that he had to review their papers, mm-hmm. So he was very busy. And it was a 2-page application. The first page, what's your name, what's your address? So I pulled out my license to make sure I had it spelled right. And the second page, I had probably 8 questions. It took me 80 hours.
To write it, to do 8 questions?
Mm-hmm.
You really put some thought into it.
Yeah, because they were asking questions like, did you submit an evaluation form? Did the people that you garden with, did they read these questions? I said, they don't even, some of them don't know they're here, let alone read something. And the children, say at the Little Lighthouse, we just toured that today, but my answer was no. And I'm thinking, this could be 20 points out of 100. So how do you answer this?
It obviously means a lot to you, John, to even have made it that far and be recognized. But Dr. Wilson, you've probably seen a lot of projects. Obviously, with Master Gardeners, that's part of the, the distinction as you go back out into your community, you have these projects. What was it about John's when you saw or knew about Dominic's garden that you said, that's a little bit different, that's just, just a little bit set apart from maybe other projects. You should go for this.
Right, and so there are wonderful master gardeners all over the state, and there are fantastic projects all over the state, working with youth, working with young children, working with elderly, just a wide variety of groups and a wide variety of topics. So there's fantastic projects all over the state. I have to brag on John just a little bit. He's a rock star in the Mississippi Master Gardener world. He won't tell you that, but every year he's one of the top 1 or 2 for most hours volunteered during the year, and we're not the only place that he volunteers with. But so he does a fantastic job. But his willingness and desire and calling to work with special needs clientele is different from what anybody else in our program was doing. And so it stood out just easily because of the people group that he's willing to work with, because not everyone is willing to work with people with some type of special need. And then I saw the work that he was doing. I got to go visit some of the facilities he was working at and seeing the smile on people's face and the difference he was making. And it wasn't the traditional difference that we look for in Extension, where they fill out an evaluation and we can find out, what difference we made. It's a visible difference. It's a physical difference that we were able to see through the work that he does. And so when he came to me with the thought of submitting it for an application, it was an easy decision.
When you were pushing John to revise or edit his application, to talk more about the process, what were you kind of looking for from him? Was it more emotion from him? But then I'm hearing that it was more of like a structured journal, so maybe it was less emotion. Where were you pushing or challenging him in his writing skills, or is it all of the above?
It was all of the above, but we did have a lot of fun. We edited back and forth, and like he said, I would send it.
Sound like it was fun.
I would send edits, and he would ignore my edits, and so we had to get on the same page. But it was more about, for this particular application process, it was about taking the emotion out of it. So that was difficult to do because it's such an emotional issue, especially for John, who's involved with it so heavily. But as we wrote everything, we had to take the emotion out of it and the personalization out of it as much as we could for this application process. So that was really difficult.
And it seems sort of impossible, but what I love about it, John, though, is even without that bias, it sounds like anyone who read that application could see the good work that was being done and probably needed to be done more in more places, which is why it's gotten its opportunity to sort of spread. When people do think of maybe gardening with those that are differently abled, you mentioned that, Master Gardener comes with botany and all these sciences and just can be really complicated. But at the end of the day, it's super simple that even the simplest of minds can understand gardening. Do you find that when you work with them that it gets back just to the beauty of care for something and it will grow in the right environment?
I do. Again, I've had so many courses in home horticulture under Dr. Wilson and MSU Extension, and I have this passion. I just tell people, do you know how cool this is? And then you're working with someone, say, dementia, or a 4-year-old with Down syndrome. And I say, I want to let you share this passion with me. And that's the key. Regardless of how much I know and how much they don't know, it's up to me to find some medium that I can convey this information. And that medium is passion. If I don't have that passion, they'll see through me. It'll become boring. It's no longer, it's totally, it's like this guy's talking from Mars or something. I don't understand what he's even trying to say. But if you say it with passion and it comes out of your heart, they'll receive it in their heart.
Does it matter the age, stage, intellectual ability or not of life? Do the reaction of when someone comes back and recognizes that what they planted has blossomed, is it kind of universal in excitement?
Yes, the excitement's there. Again, you're like the 3-year-old Amelia. that she saw that there's life. Even in this dead flower, there's still life there. And that's what we want to convey. That's what I want to convey, that we all going to go through this. And I find it somewhat rewarding. And people say, oh, you get all these rewards back. And I think St. Ignatius said it best. The only reward you want is knowing that you're doing God's will. And people say, why do you do it? And I said, I have no idea why I'm doing this.
Well, we're going to do this one more time. Stick with us. We got more with John and Dr. Wilson coming up next. We're continuing our conversation with Master Gardener Dr. Wilson and also John Malanchak. And they won, or I guess you won, John, and won second place at it's the International Master Gardener Conference. Is that kind of back in June for your work? But both of you have sort of dedicated, well, Dr. Wilson, your whole career to gardening, and then John, your, I guess, retired phase of life has all been dedicated to being a master gardener. So I'm curious, we'll start with you, John. What inspired you to be a master gardener?
I've always liked gardening, but even when I was a little kid, I didn't know what to study. And so I was jumping back and forth. In the master gardening program, it was a very structured program. In other words, if you follow step 1, you'll go to step 2. But I think I was mowing my wife's plants.
Not the yard. You were mowing them flat down.
I was mowing them flat down. If they didn't flower, I thought they were just some kind of a big, thick grass, big leaf grass. And it came up. She saw the advertisement for the Master Gardening Program to be held here in central Mississippi. And she said, you really need to take this program.
And sort of figure, stop killing my plants. Now, does she appreciate your gardening knowledge now?
She appreciates it. Well, she doesn't grow her flowers anymore. So, but she's not a gardener. She likes to do a lot of mosaics, but I'm the gardener.
That's okay. And you have a lot of produce, too, that I'm sure she appreciates enjoying throughout the year.
Yeah, one summer I gained 16 pounds eating, zucchini bread.
Oh, okay. I was like, what were you growing that gave? I was thinking maybe BLTs or whatever else. Zucchini bread will definitely do that for you. So, Dr. Wilson, you obviously got the bug earlier in life and stuck with it on a professional track. So, where was your niche? Where did you find your love of gardening?
I always enjoyed working in the yard growing up, and I love to mow the grass. That sounds unusual, but I love mowing grass as a young kid. And at age 10, a neighbor asked me to mow their yard, and I remember they paid me $3, and the light bulb went off, and I started mowing yards that summer. I had a lawn care business through high school and a little bit in college, and so I've been working in horticulture for over 40 years now.
What I think, too, is an important part of this conversation is I recognize, John, this is sort of your retired phase, which also is important, meaning you do not have to give up on something you enjoy. You can find a new hobby long after your professional, you sort of close that professional chapter. But, Dr. Wilson, I think more young people need to recognize that there is career paths, in like gardening and this. You don't necessarily have to be the big farmer that we sort of think about. So, like, how do you describe the difference between farming agriculture and then like gardening science or gardening, if that makes sense?
Yeah, so I guess that's the difference in traditional agriculture versus horticulture or gardening. There are a lot of similarities, as in plants grow the same, whether it's an agronomic crop or a horticulture crop, and they all have to deal with good quality soils, which we do have here in Mississippi. But then there are some extreme differences. Growing corn, cotton, soybeans is a completely different world than growing all of the vegetables that you'd grow in your backyard.
And John, you were talking about interested too in like diseases. So from even a science in terms of plants, so there at Mississippi State, I know you were in the Master Gardeners program with the extension, but just thinking about all the cool things, younger people that may have an interest in agriculture on some level or being a horticulturist. I mean, there's all kinds of ways you can dive in and go deeper with education.
Yes, absolutely. And even within our system, there's a junior Master Gardener program that is for youth that are 4-H age 8 to 18. So there's a lot of gardening programs out there for people under the age of 18, and then once they turn 18, they can join the traditional Master Gardener program. And then, of course, at MSU, there's a horticulture program that you can major in there, and other agronomic programs that you could major in there as well. So there's a lot of different opportunities starting at a very young age.
John, I know this is like your second lease on life. If you could go back and do it all again, would you have been a professional horticulturist? It's such a hard word to say. Would you have done it all different, or would you have just stuck your same route and used this as your retirement enjoyment?
I would have been a priest.
Well, I did not see that coming.
Me either.
That doesn't surprise me. And that would have been gardening would be and still is a great medium for you to share the gospel, for sure. Absolutely. Okay, if there's someone listening, John, that says, I love this idea of bringing their love of gardening to those populations that may not get it often, whether it's children, those living with different abilities, or even the elderly that may be going through dementia or such. Is there a way, are you trying to replicate Dominic's garden for others, or is there a way to help the next phase of Dominic gardeners out there? Because you can't do them all.
I try.
Well, you're one man, and from what I hear, you got to pick weeds often. So.
Well, no, not really. But yes, if you have even your neighbor, if your neighbor is an elderly person, reach out, garden with them a little bit. If you have a facility near you that have individuals with special needs. Go over there and talk to the director. By all means, talk to the director first. Don't just show up and start gardening.
That would be weird.
You'd be surprised. I mean, I want to say it takes courage on your part to go in there and say, this is what I want to do. And sometimes you have no idea why you're doing this. You're just there. And all of a sudden you find out that this is what God put you here for.
And I know this sounds silly, but for those that, I'm thinking of all the roadblocks. Like if I got a little twinge listening to you, John, and thought, man, I'd love to go and volunteer at my local nursing home where my mom is or where my grandmother is, or just connect that way. How do I do it? Do I do a raised bed? Am I tilling up the background? Am I just getting a bunch of containers? Like, what would be the easiest way for someone to say because when they go, they're going to be like, well, you're going to need a plan, ma'am, before you come and just start planting things around. So, how would be that first easiest step?
Well, that's just it. You have to have a plan when you go in there. And I went into St. Catherine's Village Memory Care Unit with the executive director of St. Catherine's Village. And I had a plan. I had a PowerPoint presentation, talked about from A to Z. This is what I would like to do. Now, your patients, I don't. So help me with this plan, fill in the gaps or take certain things out. Find out that, say, with memory care, container gardening is probably the best way. A raised bed, if they're ambulatory, can walk out the door to the table, they can hold on to the table. Now, a lot of them are in wheelchairs, so you bring the garden to them. When I say bring the garden to them, I'm talking about a 4 or 6 inch pot filled with potting soil, and you hand them a couple of seeds, large seeds, we'll say pole beans, and they plant them, and they're just happy as can be. They still have a purpose in life.
And they have a reason to get up and check on theirs.
Yes, and that's their babies. I said, no, you're going to take care of these.
And they do.
They do.
And it's the small things that really do matter. You never know how far that can go, or just the simple act of giving someone the hope that you plant something, you take care of it, and then new life can blossom.
It's so much more than gardening.
It is so much more than gardening. And this conversation has been so much more than just talking about gardening, but still congratulations on your award.
Thank you.
It's very well. And Dr. Wilson for recognizing it, right? We've got Jared on the text line that says, is that Master Gardner, Mr. Wilson from Dennis the Menace? Does that mean anything to you?
That does not, but that's interesting.
Okay, no. Then was there a Master Gardner on Dennis the Menace? Say Mr. Wilson. Rhino's saying no, he is our movie.
There was a Mr. Wilson.
Mr. Wilson, but not He wasn't a master. But that would have been a great sort of connection
It would
had that been. If somebody is more interested about the Master Gardener program, the junior, the original, or even looking to the advanced, how do they learn more about that?
The easiest thing is to go to MSU's Extension website, which is extension.msstate.edu. And you can type in 4-H Junior Master Gardener to look at that program, or you can just type in Master Gardener, and it will take you to the Master Gardener page. And you can read all about the program, and you can read about the different programs around the state. We have about 55 counties that have a group within the state, and so you can read all about it there, or they can contact me as well. And they can also contact their local MSU Extension office.
And John, is there anywhere we can keep up with what you're doing, or you just want to encourage people to get involved with their Master Gardener programs?
Oh, I definitely want to encourage people to take the program, and also the Master Gardeners out there in your counties, please get involved with those who need you.
Yeah, they need you. We need gardening. We need flowers. They make us happy.
That's right.
And they feed us. This has been a pleasure. Thank you both for taking the time to be here today. But you guys stick with us. We got a little bit more for you coming up next.